Here. Welcome again to Forward Focused. This is a special Friday edition. We're glad to have you. As always, want to thank each of you for coming out. Want to thank our marvelous AV ministry, AV team, Brother Alan Lavender, Reverend Sandy Pace, Sister Letitia Frey. Want to thank, as always, my our guest panel that's always here, so they're not guests anymore. Our panel, Reverend Stephen A. Cousin Jr., Reverend Dr. Michael A. Cousin Sr., and Bishop Philip R. Cousin Sr., of course, as well. Want to thank all y'all for coming out. Got a lot to talk about today. We're going to have a good time, I think. Should be fun. So if you don't mind, Steve, open us up in prayer if you don't mind, my friend.
Let us pray. Gracious and eternal Master, we thank you for today. We thank you for allowing us to see another day that only you have created. We ask right now that you continue to be with us, continue to keep us, continue to bless us. These are all the blessings and praises we sing in Son Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Steve. If we were to have a theme for each show, and maybe we'll get to a point where we'll start naming the shows. The theme of today's show is the more things change, the more they stay the same. Um, and it looks like things are truly staying the same. So we're going to run around a little bit, some different places. But we're going to start today, if everybody doesn't mind, and we're going to move to a lot of different topics around the same thing. But I know in Georgia, there's a lot of protests and a lot of backlash about restrictive, oppressive voting bills and voting laws now, I guess, that have been passed, not by on a federal basis, but on a state basis, basically handcuffing, especially African Americans, persons of color, those that are disenfranchised, their opportunities to vote. And now I'm hearing the same thing is being done in Florida. All it takes now is for the governor, my governor in Georgia is one thing and the governor in Florida is another thing, but boy, they walk hand in hand with one another. But nevertheless, all it takes, I think he has to sign it or he just signed it, and it's a restrictive, oppressive bill as well. So my thing is this, and I say the more things change, the more they stay the same. We changed the presidency. Nothing changed too much on the down ballot, especially in the states. So with all of this going on, what, if anything, can we do?
Two things. I'll start off real quick. A, we have to basically put pressure on Congress to pass the John Lewis Voting Rights Act. I mean, it really, anything now has to be done at the federal level to actually protect voter rights and really to ensure that every vote is counted. And B, I think it's ironic that here is Florida getting ready to pass some of the most restrictive voting laws next to Georgia, but yet we plan on holding our general conference, actually bringing in revenue to that state in the upcoming months. I know we talked about boycotting, Coca-Cola, Home Depot in Georgia. Why are we not talking about boycotting Florida for the general conference if Florida is about to follow suit with actually having restricted voting rights?
Okay, now, excellent point. Um, what is the actual, though, feasibility for our organization doing that? Dad, you hosted general conferences before. Is that even something that would be feasible?
Right now, if they do not have the proper memorandums of understanding, we're in high water without a paddle. How many contracts have we already signed? How many commitments have we made? I think it's public knowledge, or at least among certain aspects of our church, that we have committed to 22,000 room nights. Now, what has gone on with that commitment? You don't commit room nights without some kind of attachment so that those who are submitting their hotel rooms will have some kind of protection. So if we have 22,000 room nights, how many of them will we be obligated to take care of if we do not have general conference? The thing that is really bothering is to have a a major convention as we have without a lot of pre-planning and understanding the circumstances where we are, you can run into some difficult financial straits. And I think the pandemic has placed us in that position. So I think for us, it is a matter as far as within my framework of understanding, how much have we previously committed that we will lose if we do not go to Orlando for the General Conference? Are there certain commitments we have made which we cannot get out of financially? The other aspect is very similar because we've got some policy aspects we could take care of. But financially, how are we dealing with the situation that the pandemic has placed us in?
Okay, excellent. So, what Steve was saying, signed the John Lewis Voting Rights Act regarding what we can do about these oppressive things. What do y'all say, Mike, Dad? What do you think?
Well, I think that for us to act now, listen to the daddy about the contracts. It's like buying a car and then trying to negotiate the price. We've lost leverage. I think in 1992, when we had the General Conference in Orlando, the Chamber of Commerce reported later on that year that there was a $30 million surplus that was garnered and experienced within the Orlando area at that time. It was basically because of the uptick of our presence there. We get it back to what Stephen said about voting, about the Voting Rights Act. One thing we have to do is to hold our representatives accountable. Do we actually know who our representatives are? If you look at the recent census, that there are places that are losing seats and places that are pretty much red states have gained, will be gaining some state seats in the House of Representatives. North Carolina, Florida, I believe Georgia may be gaining a seat.
Texas is gaining one as well.
Texas, and so every now and then when you watch the opposing view of Fox News, it gives you insight of what others are thinking. I think that the basic thing is for us, we just can't be a one-shot deal, that we must continue and sustain our involvement in the political process. Yeah, there are going to be a whole lot of things in terms of the restrictive laws. That just goes back to gerrymandering and to Jim Crow. Nothing has changed, but we must change in the fact of no longer being apathetic, but being committed and to dispel the myth that your vote does not count. If your vote does not count, why are they doing so many things to restrict us? And secondly, New York lost a seat because 89 persons did not respond to the census in New York. In New York, 89. As many people are there. And they're losing a seat. So it shows us the value of civic involvement, and not just on that law, but we must be involved in the total process in terms of voting, in terms of government, in terms of even all politics is local, and just being involved so that we will not be lost in the process.
You got anything, Dad?
Yeah, what Michael said is so important. All elections matter, not just the ones every 4 years where we come up with the presidential election. All elections matter. The ones that are off year, where you elect your down ballot persons who govern the states and the districts. What we're facing now is a problem of gerrymandering, which is going to be in the hands of the state legislators, who now are the legislatures in this country are majority controlled by Republicans. So you can look for the kind of gerrymandering that's going to be done to maintain at least their margin and try to increase their margin so they could overcome the deficit, the very small 6-member deficit that they have in the House. And if they can do that, then McCarthy can become the Speaker of the House. And if you got McCarthy with Speaker of the House, and if you got McConnell, who is controlling the filibuster in the Senate, we're dead in the water. Nothing's going to pass. Nothing's going to pass. But sometimes we get so excited and so happy about a little victory without understanding that that little victory is going to require an even stronger force from us to make our voices heard within the framework of the states where we live. That's where the action is going to take place now. And if we don't do it, Barack Obama went into the White House with a large margin, Senate and the House. In 2010, with all them folk, the ones from that new group, what they call them, the new group of Republicans that came in 2010.
Tea Party.
Huh?
The Tea Party?
That's right, the Tea Party. The Tea Party came in, they took over the House, they took over the Senate, and thank God that the Affordable Care Act was passed before that happened, because nothing was done substantively after that. Mm-hmm. Now, Biden has passed one bill. That's why he is not giving way to the hope of bipartisanship, but he's saying very clearly that he understands what happened in 2008 and 9, and he doesn't want that to happen in 2021 and 22.
I was going to say it is going to happen, where if you look at, the first 100 days of office, you lay out your agenda, but from past presidents, you only really get one major legislation piece passed through the House and the Senate. With Barack Obama, it was the Affordable Care Act. With President Trump, it was his tax plan. With George Bush, it was the Patriot Act and No Child Left Behind simultaneously. When you're looking at what Biden's doing now, I think it was a foregone conclusion that with the American Rescue Plan, that was going to be a continuation regarding the pandemic. But you see what he's trying to put into place with the infrastructure plan. I think he's calling it America First, something of that aspect. I think that's like the only major legislation that he's going to be able to get passed during his tenure. That is to say nothing of the Voting Rights Act, the George Floyd Policing Act. I think Biden's going to push this one piece of legislation, hoping to get bipartisan support, but I think this is going to be it for what we're going to see coming out of his office.
Well, you have the political analyst James Carville saying that Democrats suffer from a wokeness. And you already see right now that there's bargaining going on. Whenever you say bipartisanship, is bargaining, is watering down your intent. I think that you go back to when Bill Clinton was president in 94, the midterms, the Democrats experienced explosion in terms of picking up seats. But then we lost it. They lost it in 94. 94 they got it, but they lost it later on when Newt Gingrich came out with Contract with America.
Right.
So I think what we must do in terms of our civic responsibility is always to put it before the people and to show them that we are not finished. We're just beginning. And I think about this. As Dad talked about the state legislature in Iowa, there was a representative in Iowa debating history, what is taught in the schools, and wanted to talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly of slavery, the good. He said, to have someone say that, the good part of slavery, what in the world is the good part of slavery? we see now that they wish to erase, and what's the term, to redact, and in terms of history of trying
Whitewash.
Whitewashing.
a revisionist history
Revisions.
Right.
that pretty much discounts the history of this country. Think about it. Senator Tim Scott said that there's no racism, but he's getting pulled over in DC, and he said that he's being followed in stores. So what is that? Brother Scott, I mean, what exactly are you talking about? That brother is so disconnected from the community. You don't revoke a black card because he never got one.
You know what, Mike? There are a few times that I'm embarrassed by somebody. And I was absolutely just complete. I don't even know the man, I don't know nothing about the man, but just being that we share the same melanin, the same skin color, sweet Jesus, he's just embarrassing.
Well, I mean, for him, you see a lot of that in southern states of conservatives, among blacks, among our people. And I guess you could say that they have access to certain segments of power, but not necessarily having power and benefits from it. You get caught up in values. We want to have the right values, but remember, who made those values? Who set those values up? That wasn't necessarily persons that looked like us. And think about it, when you have immigrants who voted in overwhelming numbers for Trump, when he was talking about make America great. I had a debate here in my apartment complex with a gentleman who moved here from the Middle East. He said, Trump is a great man. Trump is a great man. You should vote for him. He's a great man. I said, according to whose community? And he was just telling me his view. I said, man, you get access to loans and grants and business opportunities that they've been denying to us for the past 100 years, if not longer. So, instead of, I didn't want to have a debate with him. I just said, God bless you, and I moved on about my business.
Michael,
praise God.
Michael, one thing I think what disturbed me as much as Tim Scott was when George Floyd's brother on national television asked him if this is a racist nation. He said no.
And I mean,
I don't see, and I think Ben Crump, his lawyer, almost went through the floor, but because somehow we have to understand that one little victory is not the battle. It's not the war is not over. If he can't see how racist this country is with the killing of his brother, what kind of hope do we have? That there, when I was doing my dissertation, John O'Killen had a little couplet that I put in there. Too much love, nothing kills up. You know what, like too much love. And sometimes we have used love in the wrong way without understanding that love is not always the solution that Black folk need. Black folk need love, yes, but we need some understanding and some respect that goes with the love. And I was just dumbfounded. And to hear the way the whole issue of racism in this country has been tiptoed around by persons who ought to know better, it's astounding.
So here's my question. And, just to, further elaborate or even delve deeper, maybe that there are some, because you find them in every generation. There were those that support, Martin Luther King during the Montgomery Boys boycott movement. There were those who did not agree with Harriet Tubman, basically leave and head into the North. Do you think that there are some of us who are too dependent on, the white society for survival? that they have to make these remarks because they feel like they need to say it just so they can try to fit in and really to continue to depend so they can actually live out their lives. And so I think that's something that we may want to look into, even for Vice President Harris to say, no, I don't think America is racist. I mean, like, my concern is when you were running, you touted HBCUs. I mean, you made sure you hyped up your sorority, but yet now was the time you're in office. You say no, you don't believe America is a racist country. It's like you're forgetting all about us because now you're basically saying I can't make that statement because I still need people from other colors to still vote for me for when the time comes. So I can't go too far out there because I still need their votes. And I think that's what happens, to us, that we're afraid to really take a stand because we feel that we're going to be isolated and we still can't get what we want or what we desire by depending on other races and other cultures to get us there.
Well, as you stated that, we have it's a mental perniciousness that we experience, that we've been brainwashed to really pretty much to give up and discount our own experiences in order to be accepted in the greater whole. What I mean by that is, uh, once we get to a certain level or station in life, we think everything's okay, and all those problems have gone away. But those problems are not gone away; they're still there because there are many of us that experience it at each and every day. Um, it's disheartening to hear someone who flaunts the fact that you went to a HBCU, even when you campaigned, they put some fried catfish out there, you immediately reach for the hot sauce to say you know what you're doing. But then it's sort of like what Mordecai said to Esther: if they get us, they're gonna get you too, Esther, because you one of us. And so that Esther paradigm must come into play, where we must remember our connection to our community. Sadly, a lot of our people feel as if that's something that holds them back. Um, there was a movie, I can't recall, Joe, you remember the movie that I told you about that was made about the white man, I mean the black guy who was who they thought was white, and and he went to visit this family of his daughter of the woman he was dating, and the man said he moved up north because he wanted his children to have a good education, and he's almost passing. I got to get the name of that movie. Remember that,
Was that
Joe?
was that that was that old movie?
It was an old movie. But I thought it took a lot of nerve for them to make something like that. To
But
have a
was it
white
the one
actor
where
play the black man.
what and was the black man in a certain fraternity that I shall not name on here? Was that movie?
Yes, he was. I would say it was fraternity. He was a member of Kappa Alpha Psi.
See, I'm not gonna get in that.
He was a member, and he wanted to work at a black hospital.
Yep.
But he was so fair skinned that they said no, you can't do it. And but in the movie, it revealed some of those thoughts that that still plague us now in terms of trying to pass to be accepted. We will
Mike,
give up, we will deny our own background.
it was called Lost Boundaries
Lost boundaries. If you have a chance to see that movie, please look at it.
from 1949.
1949. I thought the imitation of life or something that I saw it. Lost boundaries.
It was different.
It was different, and it really
You made me watch
exposed
it.
a lot of stuff. Exposed a lot of stuff. But I think that we as a people need to stop denying and start accepting and embracing. Yeah,
Oh, and Mike, also, except for supporting roles, white actors were used in the movie to play. Watch this. Black people passing as white people were portrayed by white actors.
yeah. That's the thing we have to look at. We're still being plagued by that. We deny our heritage in order to be accepted in the greater whole. And we must continue. There's going to come a time that if you don't talk about it or bring it up, it'll get lost in the shuffle. And
Well, Michael, let me tell you from an experience of one who lived, and in 1949, I finished high school. So the problem that we have had, and I can remember from 1940 up till now, is that if we ever get integration, all will be solved. And so our whole objective was to become integrated into a society that never really wanted us. We tried with our schools, we tried with voting, we tried with housing, we tried with everything. But the problem that we have is that too many of us have taken on the George Jefferson complex, that once we get a little bit, we're gonna move on up and forget about where we came from. What keeps nations and ethnicities strong is when they never let their children forget who they are, where they came from, and no matter what you do, you're gonna be the same. I always say to myself and to as many as I can, you can drop black in a pot of white and it's gonna come out black, it ain't gonna be white. So, no matter how many of us they drop in that pot, remember, you are still black, and you might be in the white pot, but you ain't gonna be white. You're not gonna be, there are gonna be many who you think will be your associates, your colleagues, your friends, but when they get to the water's edge, you'll find out exactly where they are. That's why I appreciate Judaism. I appreciate the Islam, those who teach their children, never forget who you are. Remember who you are. It's good to be a part of the major culture in this nation, but I'm not going to let that make me forget what a struggle it was to even be accepted to be a part of the major culture, and to know that there are others who still are not a part. And my job is to use where I am to help others become, so that the playing field is level and all the obstacles are gone. And that thing that has when I was growing up, there was a saying that was saying, when you're white, you're all right. When you're yellow, you're mellow. When you're brown, you stick around, but when you're black, you get back. That was everything that was said within the framework of when I was growing up in the 40s. When you're white, you're all right. The lighter you are the white. When you're yellow, you're mellow. When you're brown, when you can stick around. When you're black, brother, you got to get back. And that we have seen over and over and over again.
And to that point, I would say, when we talk about integration, when we say that resolves everything, but we miss a key point: the resources. If predominantly Black schools were to receive the same resources as predominantly white schools, we would not be talking about integration. The only reason why we did integrate is so we can actually have those same resources. But once we started attending those schools, those resources left because white folks pulled out and the resources followed them. And so even now with the suburbs, we talk about the development. I mean, resources went out there. Once Black folks started moving to the suburbs, white flight, they moved back to the urban centers, and that's where we have gentrification, because the resources follow. So to us, we have to come to the realization that integration, yes, it can work in terms of, sharing ideas and cultures, but the resources have to be the same everywhere. We could talk about equal all we want, but where is the equitable process throughout all of this? Well, we wouldn't be talking about integration. If we were to get the same resources, same dollars, where even for the city of New Haven, we have over 42 public schools. And when the pandemic hit, when they talked about upgrading the HVAC systems, talked about social distancing in the classrooms, only a third of our schools were already ready to go. And those were in the predominantly white areas. Why is it that only 10 of our schools were ready, but not the other 30? And so it just goes to show you the unequal level of distribution that we have in our school system and our housing, the entire system all together. And until we really address that, until we get to the weeds, we're always going to have these conversations. But what's disappointing is you have those who are positions of power that know what's going on, that understands it, but really can't really sound the alarm because they're afraid they can lose their position. They can lose their status. They can lose their influence. But what's the point of being in a position if you're not willing to utilize it?
So here's my question, and for the person watching this today who feels, I mean, you see this stuff happening. A lot of people already feel like they don't have a say in the process anyway. So what hope is there then for the millennial or the Gen Z person or the boomer or the anybody Gen Xer who says, why should I even care about this then? Because obviously there's nothing I can do about it. What hope do we give them?
Well, you got to start locally. I mean, that's the first thing I would say. I mean, it's something small as showing up to your board education meetings, showing up to a police commissioner meeting, whatever boards and commissions that are occurring in your city. It starts locally. Too many times we want to take the approach that we think by changing our slogan on Facebook for our profile pic, or maybe trying to go viral, it's going to resolve everything. Really, you got to be willing to start small. That's how the changes occur. They got to be able to see your face. They got to be able to know that you have a visible presence. There are those within the city of New Haven that they were to show up because they can make some noise that, hey, we're going to listen. What is it that they're looking for just so they can leave us alone? There's an old saying, the squeaky wheel gets the most oil. You got to be able to make noise, not just outside, but inside the room, but do it in a way where you're not just showing up in emergency, but you got to show up when things are normal or as calm, where you show up every single time. You don't really got to say nothing, but your presence says it all by actually understanding the rules of engagement. That's how you do it. You're not going to change everything overnight, but you got to start somewhere. You don't chop down the tree with one swing. You got to keep swinging at it, but you got to know where you're hitting. So start small. Even by attending just a local meeting on a regular basis can go a long way.
Yeah. I would just say that to give them hope, you got to show them something. I looked at there's a young man was doing a clip in Detroit, and he invested with two other guys and got a hair care store. And they were talking about having it for the community, since we know who is the largest consuming group for hair care products. But in the comments, you had persons saying, I bet they won't have the latest stuff or their stuff is priced too high. We got to get out of this. The white man's ice is colder than the black man's ice. We got to get out of that. And I think it's not just showing up to the meetings, but showing that we do have a community that will back us, that we are committed one to the other. I see your shirt, Black Wall Street. That speaks volumes. That it is possible. That it was done once before. We must learn to support and really know about those things that will benefit our community. And I think that, we as a people, we give up too soon. There's a show I like to watch on HGTV, Bargain Block. It's about two guys that are going into places in Detroit where they're from, and they're buying houses for $1,000 and they're renovating them and selling them for as much as $75,000 to $90,000. And talk about the profit and how they're going from house to house. They're using the profits on each house that they're doing. Now, I applaud that because they're not trying to take the money out of the community. But we can do something similar to that, of working together, of building up the block. And what kills me is when you have persons that look like us to come in and say, "Ooh, I saw this house. I've been looking at this house a whole time, and ooh, it looks so good." And how are y'all able to do that? Why can't we do something similar when we support one another? And I think that that would show if we work together, then they know that we are a force because we have put aside our differences and we're able to bring together, come to the table in a united front. Our problem is we have a lot of chefs, but not enough soup. And so everybody wants to be everybody wants to be in the forefront, but no one wants to do the leg work. And so I think that um, we must redirect our efforts and to be committed and to be involved, not just the one shot deal every 4 years, but each and every day from really support their Black business. In Durham, they had the UDI, the Urban Durham Initiative,
Oh, Lord, yes.
you know. Uh, you know, it's possible, but we must be willing to buy into it and to show from that initiative, it woke up a lot of stuff that opened doors for people of color.
Only problem, Michael, is once you mentioned UDI, when you get so high, the folk that they buy you off. Look what happened to the leaders of UDI when they bought off UDI. I was well aware, know all about it, helped get it started, but UDI could have been, but then those who were doing it became vice president of such and such a corporation, became this, became that. And sometimes the zeal that we have in getting started, we lose because we get co-opted into the process that we're trying to stop. The Anglo-Saxons, I call them Caucasians, whatever you want to call them, they are smart in many ways. When they see you coming with an idea that's going to be detrimental, be careful they don't try to buy you out and get you out of the way, because you're going to be what Tucker Carlson and Ron Johnson and Josh Hawley and Ted Cruz are now saying, the replacement for us. And anytime they think that somebody's going to come and replace them for what they're doing, they will buy you off. Look at or watch our elected officials, see how many tiptoe and dance around and get bought off. You can't do one thing when you're running and do another thing when you get elected. If you're going to be constant and constant, be constant. It is hard to maintain Black institutions because most of our institutions will not be totally supported by those of us who we're trying to foster and help them. It's a difficult situation because we've been really brainwashed with a slave culture that makes us think that if we can get into the white society, we'll be much better off.
You know, that is, I do not wish to dominate the conversation, but I saw something at my school, Alabama State in Montgomery, HBCU. They have an occupational therapy program. And they were saying another group has graduated. And out of about 14 students that they showed, only 2 were Black. And so someone wrote the context, somebody wrote the comments, I thought this was an HBCU. And so I replied to him, I said, even those who are not of our community know of a good program that is affordable that would benefit them. I recently got checked by my oldest brother when I talked about Apple moving into the area. And I said, the reason they're coming, because you have great universities in the area they can pull from. I named North Carolina State, I named Duke, I named UNC. But then he said, see there, it's happening to you already. He said, you forgot North Carolina Central, A&T, you forgot the schools, St. Aug, Shaw, and Raleigh.
Winston State.
He said, yeah, Winston State. He said, isn't that something? And I said, Lord have mercy. When it's so easy for us to look down on what we have achieved, when we look down on what is ours. Now, getting back to the piece about Alabama State, if you go to any HBCU at night, you're going to see more white students or students of other ethnicities than African Americans, because they know the value of education. And it doesn't matter where you go, it matters what you get. And they see something that's affordable. We as a people, we get caught up in name brand stuff, from our
So
clothes to our education.
so a lot of it then, what I'm hearing is from everyone, it's not just in order to change the political makeup and to change what you see in the ballot box and to change what you see on the ballot, to change what you ultimately see in office. It begins with partnerships, working together. Mike, you talked about, or Steve, I think, talked about it. Mike talked about it. Working together to build resources, working together to build up our schools, working together to build up our finances, just overall working together as a people. Because one of the things I think that's the worst is when we actually, as you just said, Mike, we look down on black schools ourselves, on HBCUs ourselves, and don't want to encourage our kids to go there. I'm excited, and I'll say this. I went to Hampton University, love it, wonderful school. My daughter is in 10th grade, going into 11th grade soon. She's touring schools. And what school does she want to tour, Mike?
She wants to tour North Carolina A&T, Aggie Pride.
So I'm excited about that because at least she wants to see, even though of course I would love for it to be my HBCU, but any HBCU for me, I'm happy about that. And so I'm excited about that. But we have to talk about it with our kids. We have to continue to push. Churches and organizations have to continue to do HBCU tours. It's hard during COVID, but HBCU tours, and we must push our stuff. Um, Black banks, black owned businesses, those things like that. We've got to promote them and use them and don't look down on them.
But I think with that, that's your bargaining piece where you can show your community, and you show you have the support of your community when you go in terms of government interaction. You can remind folk, we put you there and we can bring you back home. Um, so it's an appreciation and knowing um, the rules of the game. Remember the game, rules change all the time. You got to stay up on it. So it's just like with politics. Rules change all the time. You got to stay up on the game if you want to be successful. So I just got beckoned back. I wish to thank y'all. I got to go back to, y'all see the background. Yeah, got to go back do my thing. But again, thank you so much. And, I'll give my closing comments right now. I think it's important that we have dialogue among ourselves to talk and to address these things. We've ignored it for so long. We got to address it and realize it's there. It is not something that is going to hinder us, but it's going to strengthen us because we see the challenge. But we know that we can overcome the challenge when we work together. And with God, all things are possible. So, Dr. Cousin, Out. Peace and hair grease to everybody.
Take care, Mike.
Yeah.
That's a that's a good. This is a good place. We'll cut it here too. I'll close with my remarks, and then we'll go Steve, and then we'll go Dad. So thanks everybody as always for watching. Um, Gotta say it like this, Steve. You're gonna love this one. I looked at Tim Scott the other day, the senator, and this phrase came to mind: "Skin folk ain't kinfolk." So in other words, just because you look like me doesn't mean you think like me. As African Americans, we're definitely not monolithic. However, there are some things that I think all of us should agree on. And one is simply this country does have a tremendous problem with race and racism. It has a history of race and racism still going on today. Actually, and my dad would attest to this, in a lot of ways getting worse today. And one thing I've learned about problems, you cannot fix a problem if you're not willing to, first of all, recognize the problem. I woke up this morning, Steve, I've been drinking Mountain Dew again. I had to cut it because I woke up this morning and I saw that the clothes that I was able to get into weren't fitting quite as well as I wanted them to, simply because I'd gotten off track from what I was doing. So now I got to get back drinking water, doing what I'm supposed to do because I saw a problem and I'm addressing that problem. Same way with America, same way with race, but to my white brothers and sisters, black ones as well, you gotta see it before we can fix it. Steve?
It's there's this thing about, being unapologetically Black, where you don't have to apologize for the color of your skin and be willing to compromise your morals and your values. And I think too many times that we feel like we have to give up something in order to get something. I think that, you have to know who you are. You're not defined by your titles. You're not defined by your positions. You're not even defined by your status, because that can all change at the drop of a hat. But you have to know who you are as a person, and you got to be comfortable in your own skin. And then no matter what position, I've known people who have more impact being on the outside, not having a title, than those on the inside. But they know who they are, they know their purpose. And so for us, we have to understand this isn't about, us per se, but it's about the ones that are coming after us. What broke my heart last week, where there was an elementary school, children, 4th, 5th graders, marching in the streets, protesting police brutality. And I'm thinking to myself, here we are training another generation, and what they're experiencing, what they're seeing at such a young age. When is that going to stop? And I think that with this country in particular, we can say we have a problem, but we don't want to deal with the problem, because that means you really have to tear down the very fabric of this nation in order to build it back up. And I don't think people really think that they can just continue to add on top of the foundation and thinking that things will just hold up over time. But you really got to get to the root of the problem. And I think we're not willing to do that type of work. But you got to know who you are. You got to realize too that you're not in this by yourself. You do need help. You got to be able to understand from all viewpoints without compromising your own. And so don't give up your power. God gave you power. Don't give it up. No person can take it away from you. You exercise your voice. Use your action. Use your words. Nobody, if we truly believe that, we say that whatever God gives, man can't take it away, then if God really laid it in your heart to speak out, to stand up, don't be concerned with what people may say. And it's very hard to deal with, but we need to have that voice that's uncompromising, that's unrelenting, but able to channel the masses. Only when that happens, we have to stop looking for the Joshua. We have to realize that we are that generation now. All of us have that voice. Don't wait for that one person to rise up. We need to be able to rise up collectively together and with one voice saying that we are here. So I end it right there.
Amen.
Well, I thank you, Stephen. The joy that I have is at least we recognize there is a problem. As you said, you cannot solve things until you know you have a problem. The conflict and the chaos ought not to cause us to stop and refuse the challenge, which is ours, to accept this problem and to know that we will always, for a long time, be fighting the forces which want to deny an entrance into the equal playing field of life for all people. We must teach our children, continue to teach them and show them. The leadership, as you said, we don't need a Joshua. We need a lot of Joshuas. We need a lot of Moses. We need a lot of those who are in Gideon's army. We need those who are willing to do the struggle, to fight the battle, and not always look for the prizes. The victory sometimes will not be yours to see, but if you can lead them to the precipice where they can step off into the promised land, even if you can't go with them, but to know that they could not have gotten there if you and others like you had not had the fortitude and maintained the energy and the impact to lead those who were reluctant to follow to the place where they now find themselves ready to step over into the promised land, crossing the line, the red line that folks said they never could cross. So I pray that the impact and the concerns and the efforts of young people of your generation and those younger will not forget that you are where you are because somebody struggled to get you here. Don't take all the food that they put on the table, eat it, and forget all about it. If you're going to eat it, know that there's somebody coming behind you who has to eat. So if you're going to eat that, prepare the table for them so that they can also eat and enjoy the fruits of society, the fruits of a culture, the fruits of a nation where everyone is, as hopefully we say, justice for all, freedom for all, equal opportunity for all. And we have to keep preaching that, keep saying that, keep living that, keep doing that. Even if we don't see it all, know that it's coming. I have seen changes. I'd like to see some more. I have seen a whole lot of changes. I'd like to see some more. And the only way we can do it is to do what we can do and train those who are coming behind us so that they will never forget that they too have an obligation to bring everyone into what we call, hopefully, the kingdom where the power of God is the only thing that controls and governs. So I think it's been a good discussion. I appreciate the discussion, appreciate the energy. Let us not be weary of well-doing, for in due season we shall reap if we faint not. So let us not be many a failure turned about when it might have won had it stuck it out. But success is failure turned inside out, the silver lining of the clouds of doubt. So stick to the fight when your heart is hit. It's when things go wrong that you must not quit. And we will never quit with the struggle that is for us to make this nation be what it ought to be. Gracious Master, give us strength, give empowerment, give knowledge, give peace, give direction, so that those who lead might know the responsibility is theirs. And those who follow know that the responsibility is to trust. Now keep us so that we might always be in your hands, doing your will to make your kingdom come. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you, everybody.